The elevator dinged softly as it arrived at the top floor of the Reed International Building, one of Seattle's tallest and most prestigious skyscrapers. At this late hour, the office was nearly silent, except for the faint hum of computers in sleep mode and the rhythmic squeak of a mop being pushed across marble tiles. Tamara Lewis didn't belong to this world. Not anymore. Dressed in a plain gray janitor's uniform, she moved with practiced efficiency, wiping down glass doors and emptying bins with a quiet grace that went unnoticed by those who spent their days in designer suits and leather chairs. She glanced at the time, 9:43 p.m. Downstairs on the 10th floor, her 6-year-old daughter, Zoe, was curled up on a cushioned bench with a small blanket and a stuffed bear. There was no one to watch her at night, and Tamara refused to leave her home alone. Zoe had been coming with her for years now, ever since the daycare center closed and Tamara's shifts got longer. This wasn't the life Tamara had envisioned. At 19, she had been a rising star, valedictorian, full scholarship to the University of Washington pre-law track. Professors spoke of her potential with awe. She had dreams of becoming a civil rights attorney, fighting for justice like her hero, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. But her first semester of sophomore year, 2 pink lines on a plastic stick changed everything. Her parents had been strict, religious. When she refused to terminate the pregnancy, they shut the door in her face. She dropped out, worked part-time at diners, cleaned motel rooms, and eventually landed a nighttime custodial job that paid just enough to keep a roof over her and Zoe's heads. Every now and then, she caught her reflection in a mirror or glass pane and barely recognized herself. Her eyes no longer held the fire of ambition, but something deeper, endurance. Tonight was supposed to be just like any other, until she reached the 39th floor. As she rounded the corner of the executive suite, her mop bucket clipped the edge of a sleek, modern trash can. It toppled, spilling a trail of crumpled papers and what looked like an empty champagne flute. She crouched quickly, gathering the mess. That's when she heard heavy footsteps and a voice like thunder. "You," the man barked. Tamara froze, clutching a paper towel roll. From a glass-walled office stepped Logan Bryant, mid-40s tall, silver-streaked hair, and draped in a mustard-yellow designer suit that screamed money and ego. His eyes locked on her with disgust. "What the hell are you doing up here?" he spat. "You're not even supposed to be on this floor this late." I'm just cleaning." "There was a mess by the elevator," she said calmly. But Logan didn't hear her, or didn't care. He stepped closer, voice rising. "Filthy people like you don't belong near executive offices. This is why we can't have nice things." Tamara's chest tightened. She said nothing. Years of learning when to speak and when to stay silent had taught her this wasn't a battle she'd win. What neither of them noticed was the small figure peeking from behind the hallway corner. Zoe, barefoot and sleepy-eyed, had come looking for her mom, and she had just witnessed the whole thing. "Mom," the girl whispered. Logan's face twisted in irritation. "Great. You bring your kid to work now? What is this? Bring your brat to mop day." Tamara instinctively stepped in front of her daughter. "She's with me because I have no choice. I can't afford a babysitter." "Not my problem," he snapped. "One more slip-up, and I'll have you replaced." "You think I won't? I know people." Tamara didn't argue. She simply picked up the trash can, collected the last of the papers, and took Zoe's hand. As they waited silently in the elevator, Zoe clung to her mother's side. "Why was he so mean to you?" she asked. Tamara gave a faint smile, her voice barely above a whisper. "Some people think wearing a gold suit makes them better than others, but it doesn't." Zoe was quiet for a moment. "I don't like him." Tamara chuckled softly, brushing a braid from Zoe's face. "Neither do I." They exited the building through the service hallway, passing portraits of the company's founders and award plaques lining the walls. Tamara paused for a brief second in front of one. Nathan Reed, founder and CEO. A man she had only seen once, years ago during a company gala she helped clean after. Rumors said he was kind, private, and rarely came to the building anymore. "Who's that?" Zoe asked. "Someone important," Tamara replied. As they stepped into the cool night, Seattle's skyline twinkling above them, Tamara pulled her daughter close. She had traded her dreams for this little girl, and though her body ached and her bank account barely held 2 digits, she never once regretted it. But something inside her shifted tonight, not because Logan yelled, but because Zoe saw it. She couldn't let her daughter grow up thinking this was what they deserved. Not anymore. The next few nights passed in a tense stillness. Tamara tried to act like nothing had changed. She showed up on time, cleaned quietly, avoided the executive floors unless absolutely necessary. But something was different in the way she moved. Her shoulders were straighter, her gaze more alert. She wasn't just cleaning anymore, she was watching. And so was Zoe. The little girl had been unusually quiet since that night. No more humming lullabies to her stuffed bear or skipping across the linoleum floors while waiting. Instead, she sat still, eyes scanning the world with a seriousness far beyond her 6 years. It wasn't just fear, it was awareness. On Thursday evening, Tamara received her new schedule. Logan had officially restricted her access to the top 5 floors, citing security concerns. She didn't argue. She simply folded the paper, nodded, and continued her route as if nothing had changed. But she knew exactly what it meant. He wanted her invisible. What Logan didn't know was that Tamara had once studied constitutional law, that she still read policy papers and case summaries in her spare time just to feel the old fire again, and that she still remembered how to think like someone who mattered. So she started keeping records. She installed a voice memo app on her old phone and tucked it into her janitor cart's towel bin. Every time she passed the executive suite, she'd hit record and keep rolling. Most nights yielded nothing but the hum of printers and clinking of glassware from late-night drinks. Until Friday. It was late, almost midnight. Tamara had just stepped off the elevator to the 38th floor when she realized her daughter wasn't sitting on the bench where she usually waited. Her heart raced. "Zoe," she whispered voice tight. No answer. She searched the hallway until she saw a small shadow at the end of the corridor, near a glass conference room. Zoe was crouched behind a large indoor plant, eyes wide, finger over her lips. "Zoe," Tamara hissed, rushing to her. "What are you doing?" But before Zoe could answer, voices floated out from the half-open conference room door just behind them. Tamara froze. "We moved the money through the secondary holding account. Reed won't notice. He hasn't stepped in this building in 6 months," said a man's voice, Logan's, unmistakably smug. "And if he does," replied a woman, Lana, sharp and bored, "I still say we get rid of the camera. He's paranoid, not stupid." Logan laughed. "Let him find it. By then, the paperwork will be signed, and the board will back us. He'll be out before he even realizes he's been played." Tamara's breath caught in her throat. Zoe gripped her sleeve. Logan kept talking. "We leaked the dummy contracts to the press on Monday. Make it look like Nathan's been hiding assets offshore. We spin the narrative. He's the one cooking the books." Lana laughed. "I always wanted to bankrupt a billionaire." Tamara felt like the world had gone silent, except for her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. This wasn't just corruption. This was a coup. She backed away slowly, gently pulling Zoe with her. As soon as they reached the elevator, she hit the button repeatedly, praying it wouldn't ding too loudly. They descended in silence. Back on the 10th floor, Zoe finally spoke. "Are they going to hurt that man in the picture? The one you showed me?" Tamara knelt down to meet her daughter's eyes. "That man? Nathan Reed. He owns the company. And yes, those people want to take everything from him. Zoe's eyebrows furrowed. He looked nice. Tamara smiled faintly. Maybe he is. I don't really know. But what they're doing isn't right. There was a long pause. Zoe looked down, then back up. I didn't mean to spy, she said, small voice guilty. Tamara shook her head, her voice soft but firm. You didn't do anything wrong. In fact, I think you just helped us do something very important. She pulled out her phone and checked a voice memo. It was still recording. The next day, Tamara spent hours on her ancient laptop, replaying the recording and copying the audio to an external USB. She knew this wasn't something to take to HR. They reported to Logan, and she certainly couldn't afford a lawyer. But what she could do, what she had always done, was prepare. She made 3 copies of the recording, one hidden in her locker at work, one in a sealed envelope inside her daughter's toy box, and one tucked beneath the spare tire in her car. Just in case, she whispered to herself. That Sunday, the building was closed for maintenance. Tamara took Zoe to the park, where they ate peanut butter sandwiches on a worn picnic blanket. She watched her daughter chase birds and blow dandelions. And for the first time in years, she felt like maybe, just maybe, they were on the edge of something bigger than survival. Mom, Zoe asked later, tugging on her sleeve. Do people always get away with being mean just because they're rich? Tamara thought for a long moment. Sometimes they do, she admitted, but not forever. Monday morning came. Tamara resumed her shift as usual, but there was a tension in the air she couldn't explain. Logan wasn't in his office. Lana's door was closed. A few junior executives were whispering in the hallway. Then, just past 8 p.m., the elevator on the top floor opened, and a man Tamara had only seen in photographs stepped out. Nathan Reed, gray at the temples, quiet eyes, crisp suit with a barely noticeable wrinkle that suggested he drove himself here. He nodded briefly at the security guard and walked into his office. Tamara stood frozen for a moment. She looked down at Zoe, who was doodling in a coloring book on the bench nearby. Then she made a choice. She whispered in her daughter's ear, "Wait here. I'll be right back." She walked slowly to the elevator and rode up to the 39th floor, phone in hand, heart in her throat. As she turned the corner toward Nathan's office, she saw him through the glass wall, standing at his desk, frowning at a document. And that's when Zoe appeared again, standing quietly behind her mother, unnoticed. She stepped forward past Tamara and gently tapped Nathan's arm. He turned, surprised, crouching to meet her eye level. Zoe whispered, barely audible, "There's a camera in your office." For a second, Nathan Reed didn't move. He blinked at the little girl standing before him. Dark curls, wide eyes, and a voice soft as a breeze. It took him a moment to register what she'd said. "There's what?" he asked gently. Zoe looked up at him and repeated, calmly but with quiet urgency, "There's a camera in your office. They said they were spying on you." Behind her, Tamara stood frozen, caught between shock and dread. She hadn't meant for Zoe to blurt out. She just wanted a moment to decide how to approach the man. And now, there was no taking it back. Nathan slowly rose, his eyes shifting from Zoe to Tamara. "Is this your daughter?" he asked. "Yes, sir," Tamara replied, steadying her voice. I'm sorry. She didn't mean to. She did exactly what she should have," he interrupted gently. "Come in. Both of you." The room was cold, not from temperature, but from silence. Nathan gestured toward the 2 leather chairs across from his desk. Tamara hesitated, but sat, Zoe climbing on her lap. Nathan closed the door behind them and turned on a white noise machine, something only the most cautious executives used. Then he walked over to a bookshelf and pulled out a sleek device no larger than a pen. With a flick, a small red light blinked. Zoe's eyes widened. "That's a scanner?" Nathan nodded. "The kind that picks up unauthorized transmissions." He moved slowly around the office, waving the scanner across lamps, vents, picture frames. It beeped once. Then again. Near the coat rack by the window, it flashed red. Nathan's jaw tightened. He pulled the coat rack back to reveal a decorative wooden panel. Behind it, carefully drilled into the drywall, was a small black lens. "Well," he said softly, turning back to Tamara, "I guess your daughter was telling the truth." Tamara took a deep breath. "I have something else. You should hear this." She handed him a USB drive. "I recorded this Friday night. I didn't know who else I could trust." Nathan raised an eyebrow, but accepted the drive. He inserted it into his laptop, opened the file, and hit play. For the next 5 minutes, the room filled with Logan Bryant's voice, cool, calculating, and treacherous. Lana's laughter laced through the conversation like poison in champagne. Every word dripped with manipulation. "Move the money. Reed won't notice. We spin the narrative." When it ended, silence fell once more. Nathan leaned back slowly in his chair, hands folded under his chin. "I knew Logan was ambitious," he said finally, "but I didn't think he'd be reckless enough to try this." "He's already started preparing fake documents," Tamara added quietly. "They're going to leak them on Monday." "Today." Nathan nodded slowly, then looked at Zoe. "How did you know to tell me?" Zoe squirmed, but answered, "You look like a good person in the picture. And Mom said it wasn't fair what they were doing." Nathan gave her a long, thoughtful look. Then he stood, walked to his phone, and pressed a single button. "Gianna," he said calmly, "give me corporate security and legal. Emergency boardroom meeting. No excuses. 15 minutes. He turned back to Tamara. "You two just saved a billion-dollar company." 20 minutes later, the executive boardroom was full. 12 members sat around a long mahogany table, murmuring in confusion. Logan Bryant, of course, was already seated at the head, tapping away on his phone as if nothing were wrong. Lana arrived fashionably late in a red silk blouse, smug as ever. Then Nathan walked in. Behind him, to everyone's surprise, was Tamara Lewis. Murmurs rippled through the room. "What is this?" Logan demanded, standing. "We have confidential items to discuss." "Why is she?" Nathan raised a hand. "She's here because without her, you'd all be signing your resignations by the end of the week." He stepped forward and placed a speaker on the table. "Press play." The recording echoed through the room. Lana's smile vanished first. Then Logan's fingers froze. By the time the last word rang out, "I always wanted to bankrupt a billionaire," the room had gone cold. Nathan's voice was calm but deadly. "Not only did these two attempt to frame me for financial fraud, they also installed illegal surveillance devices in my private office. They violated multiple federal statutes. And more importantly, they betrayed every value this company was founded on." This is ridiculous," Logan barked, rising from his chair. "She's a janitor. She's lying." Nathan gestured toward the IT chief at the end of the table. A woman in a navy blazer nodded and held up a clear plastic evidence bag. The camera was real, hidden behind the decorative panel. "And the voice print in the audio matches your login recordings from Friday night, Mr. Bryant." Security guards appeared silently at the door. Nathan turned to them. "Escort Mr. Bryant and Ms. McKenna out of the building. Permanently." Logan stammered. "You can't do this." "I just did." Lana shrieked something unintelligible as they were led away, her heels clicking furiously against the floor. Tamara stood quietly in the back of the room, holding Zoe's hand. When the room emptied, Nathan approached her. "I'm guessing you weren't planning to be a whistleblower when you showed up for your shift last week," he said with a small smile. Tamara shook her head. "I was just trying to keep my job." "Well," Nathan said, "you've done more than that." He handed her a manila folder. She opened it to find an official employment contract. Executive Administrative Associate to the CEO, with a 6-figure salary and full benefits. "I don't have a degree," she said automatically. "You have integrity intelligence, and courage. That's worth more than any diploma. If you ever want to go back to school, we'll sponsor you. Tamara's lips trembled, and for the first time in a very long time, she didn't feel small. She felt seen. That night, as they rode the elevator down, Zoe looked up at her mother. "Are we still poor?" Tamara laughed softly. "Maybe not for much longer." Zoe grinned. "Does this mean I get real lunch at school now?" Tamara pulled her close. "This means everything's about to change." The headlines hit the newsstands before sunrise. Top execs ousted in Reed Corporation espionage scandal. Billionaire CEO betrayed from within. A janitor exposes the plot. From mop to justice. Single mother saves multi-billion-dollar empire. Tamara Lewis never imagined her name would appear in the Wall Street Journal, let alone next to a picture of her and Zoe, smiling shyly outside the building that once felt like a kingdom she could never enter. But everything had changed. The morning after the boardroom showdown, Logan Bryant and Lana McKenna became two of the most hated names in corporate America. Both were under federal investigation for wire fraud, corporate espionage, and illegal surveillance. By midweek, they had lawyered up, but the evidence was overwhelming and public. Nathan Reed, in a rare press conference, didn't hold back. "These individuals didn't just betray me," he said, voice steady and cold. "They betrayed every single employee who believed in this company. But thanks to one woman's courage and her daughter's quiet brilliance, we're still standing." He didn't name Tamara directly, but the world knew, and the office knew even faster. When Tamara arrived at work Monday evening, now as an executive administrative associate, the entire lobby staff stood to greet her. "Ms. Lewis," the concierge nodded, eyes wide with something close to admiration. The janitorial crew, her old teammates, stood awkwardly by the elevator. One of them, a tall man named Roy who'd never spoken more than 3 words to her in 3 years, stepped forward. "We heard what you did," he said quietly. "That was brave." Tamara smiled. "You'd have done the same for me." Roy scratched the back of his neck. "Maybe, but I wouldn't have thought of recording them. Or hiding a USB under my car's spare tire." Tamara laughed. "Old debate team habit." Zoe tugged on her sleeve. "Can I show them my new lunchbox?" "Later, sweetheart," Tamara whispered. Upstairs, everything felt surreal. Her new desk sat directly outside Nathan's corner office. She had a computer, a nameplate, and a window view of downtown Seattle. The chair didn't squeak. The coffee was French-pressed. The phone only rang when it mattered. But Tamara wasn't blinded by the perks. She remembered what it felt like to be invisible in these halls. She remembered being called filthy and a mistake. She remembered Logan's voice and Lana's laughter. Now those voices were gone, and in their place were murmurs of respect. That afternoon, Nathan invited her to a private meeting. "I've been thinking," he said, pouring them both tea, "about how many people get overlooked because of where they come from or what job title they hold." Tamara nodded. "I've thought about that every night for the last 6 years." He studied her. "I want to start a new mentorship initiative, focused on employees from entry-level or non-traditional backgrounds. You'd lead it." Tamara blinked. "Me? You know exactly what it feels like to be ignored. That makes you the best person to make sure no one else is." She smiled. "I'd be honored." Before she left, Nathan added one more thing. "I looked into your academic records." Tamara stiffened. "You were on track to graduate with honors. You didn't fail. You sacrificed. I want you to finish your degree. We'll cover everything. Full tuition, flexible hours. No strings punto." Her eyes burned. She covered her mouth for a second before whispering, "Thank you." He nodded. "Thank your daughter. She was the bravest person in the room." Later that week, Zoe got her own surprise. A package arrived at their apartment, hand-delivered by the company driver. Inside was a letter written in crayon-style font signed, "To Zoe, from Mr. Reed. Thank you for being brave when it mattered most. Here's something to help you chase every big dream you have. Nathan." Beneath the letter was a brand-new backpack, a stack of books, a child's tablet loaded with learning apps, and a savings bond in Zoe's name for her future college tuition. Zoe squealed, "Does this mean I could be a detective someday?" Tamara smiled. "It means you could be anything." Meanwhile, Logan's world was unraveling. His once flawless reputation was now a meme. His golden suit became a running joke on late-night television. Lana, ever the survivor, tried to land a tell-all book deal, but her image had taken too much of a hit. By month's end, both were under house arrest pending charges. Rumor had it, their relationship didn't survive even 2 days of interrogation. One tabloid ran a photo of Logan pacing shirtless on his balcony, yelling into a phone. The headline read, "From golden suit to orange jumpsuit." Tamara didn't gloat, but she didn't feel bad either. The biggest change wasn't in the headlines. It was in how people treated Zoe. At school, her teacher called Tamara after the news broke. She stood up in class and told everyone her mom saved a company. The teacher said, laughing, "I just wanted you to know she's proud. Really proud." Tamara wiped a tear away in silence. And that night, when Zoe asked if they could go to the library and check out books on law and justice, Tamara took a deep breath. "Actually, we don't need the library," she said. "We've got a laptop now. Want me to show you what a court case looks like?" Zoe's eyes lit up. "Can we do both?" They stayed up late, learning together. Tamara taught Zoe how to spot bad arguments. Zoe taught Tamara how to open emoji stickers. And in that tiny living room, surrounded by textbooks and laughter, the future looked nothing like what Tamara once feared. The sun had barely risen when Tamara Lewis stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of Reed International's 39th floor, coffee mug in hand. Her badge now shimmered with a new title, Director of Employee Empowerment. Outside, Seattle buzzed with the promise of a new day. Inside, Tamara's office was already alive, flowers on her desk, sticky notes from Zoe tucked around her monitor. "Go, Mom. Justice is cool. No more mean people." It had been 4 months since the scandal broke. 4 months since she stepped out of the shadows of cleaning supplies and into a spotlight she never sought. But she'd earned every second of it. And this morning, she was preparing for her first company-wide mentorship session. On her presentation slide, "Your job doesn't define your value." The phrase echoed everything she once wished someone had told her. Meanwhile, Zoe sat in the front row of her second-grade classroom, scribbling furiously in her notebook. Topic of the day: who is your hero? While some kids wrote about Spider-Man or their dads in uniform, Zoe wrote, "My mom is my hero because she used to mop floors and now she has an office. She stopped bad people and helped save her boss. She is the smartest person I know. When I grow up, I want to be like her, but with more sparkles." She drew a sketch of her mom wearing a cape and holding a mop like a sword. The teacher, reading it silently later, had to turn away to hide tears. At home, life had transformed. They moved from their cramped studio to a modest 2-bedroom apartment overlooking Green Lake. Zoe got her own room, painted pale yellow, with shelf for her books and space for her collection of plush animals. Tamara bought a secondhand car. She even started night classes again, studying legal ethics and organizational justice, subjects she once abandoned out of necessity. Now, she pursued them with a purpose, not just to finish what she started, but to show Zoe that dreams don't expire. They evolve. One evening, Tamara and Nathan Reed sat in the company's rooftop garden. He had invited her up for tea, a tradition he'd quietly started after late board meetings. "You know," he said, sipping from porcelain cup, "people still ask me why I gave you the job." Tamara smiled. Because I recorded your executive vice president plotting corporate sabotage. He laughed. That helped. She leaned back. What do you tell them? Nathan looked out over the city. I tell them you reminded me why I built this company in the first place. To prove that integrity matters more than pedigree. That the best ideas don't always come from the corner office. He paused. You prove that people can rise above the labels the world tries to stick on them. That's rare and powerful. Tamara nodded, quiet for a moment. Then she added, you also gave my daughter a future. One where she knows she's allowed to speak up. That was all her, Nathan said, smiling. A month later, the mentorship program launched. It paired interns, assistants, and janitorial staff with executives for monthly one-on-ones. The first event drew hundreds. Some came out of curiosity. Others came with hope. Tamara opened with a speech that would later go viral. I used to walk these halls with my head down, afraid to be seen. But the truth is, sometimes the person you ignore knows more about what's broken than the one who built it. If you've ever felt invisible, this space is for you. If you've ever been called just anything, just a janitor, just a receptionist, just a temp, then know this. You're never just anything. You are already more than enough. You are the future of this company. The applause echoed long after she stepped down. Back at school, Zoe now had a new favorite game, courtroom. She'd prop up stuffed animals as the jury, assign Tamara the role of defendant, just pretend, mommy, and deliver tiny speeches about fairness and the truth. Tamara watched, amused and humbled. Her daughter wasn't afraid anymore. Not of voices shouting, not of suits pointing fingers, and not of her own dreams. On Zoe's 7th birthday, Tamara handed her a small, gift-wrapped box. Inside was a silver necklace with a tiny charm, a book, a scale of justice, and a star. Zoe gasped. Is this real? As real as your voice, baby. What's the star for? Tamara kissed her forehead. Because you are one, and you'll always light the way, for me, and maybe for others, too. Zoe hugged her tight. Do you think I'll get to be on the news one day? Tamara smiled. You already changed the world once. Why stop now? And though no one said it aloud, everyone at Reed Corporation knew that the brightest force in the building wasn't just the woman in the suit behind the desk. It was the little girl who once whispered the truth into a billionaire's ear. Because courage doesn't always shout. Sometimes it's 6 years old and barely above a whisper.